Guys, how are you doing? Welcome to another stream of Radio Tech. This time we're gonna present you 10 experts that are gonna explain us the history of art, how the art developed throughout humankind history. So, in this first part of the program, we have Uriel, we have Julian, we have Ivan, and finally we have Karim. They're gonna explain us the first part of the history of art, beginning with prehistoric all the way to Renaissance. So, in this case, we're going to start with Real. So, what can you tell us about the history of art?
Well, first of all, we have to know all the characteristics or the concepts of every kind of art in every epoch. So, does someone know some characteristics of the art in general?
Yeah.
Like what? Some kind
So
of...
I was reading sometime. It was talking about colors, maybe.
Oh yes, it's one of those.
Yeah, shapes.
Shapes also.
Like the space?
Lines and space. Oh, you told everyone already. Well, first of all, line can be defined as the element that is continuous mark in a surface by a moving point. So it's like a segment of something starting by a point. Also, the color is used in the work in art in general. So it expresses the mood of every artist. So we can see feelings even in the colors of an artist in its paintings or everything that they make. Also, the shapes are two-dimensional shapes, and that are usually most in paintings and in sculptures and other things like that. And the space also can be defined as the element that refers to the real or implied distance between around, above, below, and all the objects.
Yeah, and art sometimes not always about colors and shapes, but it's also about descriptions, and sometimes you need to analyze it deeply. So, Julian, can you explain us a little bit about this?
Well, we have to define like what is art and what it doesn't. And for this, we have like 4 main steps to analyze the different artworks to determine if they are truly art. Well, the first one is the description. We have to look like the historical or the real elements of the art, like what is in this case, for example, a paint, what is the paint about, where was paint, when was paint, by who was paint, and if, in some cases, why it was paint. Then the second step is to analyze the painting, but it's more like an analysis of the technique of the elements inside the painting, the space, the colors that are used. Is that more like a technical analysis? And then it comes the interpretation. The interpretation is like to go beyond the analysis and try to understand what was the artist trying to represent or to really say with his artwork.
Like the concept, the context of the...
Right, like a hidden message that you need to see. But you have to be careful to don't start making like false messages that you start to yes. invent things. And well, the last step is the judging. Now, taking a consideration of all the 3 steps, you have to judge if this artwork makes like a contribution to art in general, so you can say if it can be considered as art or not. And well, we also have like, in case of the written art, the myths. We have that myths, they were like early explanations that the human gave to explain the phenomena in the nature that they couldn't really explain with science. They just said that, for example, the lightning, they saw that it was a god, that they made a whole myth around it. So because they didn't know the science behind the electric storms.
Okay, that's so cool. And later on, then we have the first civilizations that started making art, and this is the prehistoric and Mesopotamian civilization. So, Karen, can you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, well, as you know, art history is very extensive so far, but it starts in the prehistoric era, which is divided in 3 periods, which are Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. And the first one, we have the first paintings in the world in the caves, for example, the Lascaux cave in France. Then the second period, the Mesolithic, here the agriculture emerged. And it's an interesting fact that agriculture was the first revolution in the world. Then the Neolithic, some kind of structures called megaliths emerged. Do you know, guys, what a megalith is?
Not really.
Okay, so do you know the stone of Stonehenge in England?
Yes.
That is an example of a megalith. So it's very interesting because no one
So,
knows.
megaliths are rocks?
Megaliths are rocks,
Big
but
rocks.
are rocks. Yeah, but the very interesting thing about it is that no one really knows how the Stonehenge stones are right there. So it's like.
They don't know like who.
Yeah, the origins. Yeah, no one knows. Then we have Egypt. This civilization was huge. Like they had a lot of gods and stuff. But the only person that could have contact with those gods was the pharaoh, which, well, he was the main authority in Egypt. Then in the ancient art, we have like many philosophy in there, like for example Taoism, Confucianism, many rules. Then the Persian, we have like structures that ones cannot be confused with the other ones. They may be similar, but it's not the same. And then the Hinduism, it's also very interesting because here we find ideologies to maintain an order in our lives. For example, the moksha, dharma, manka, and karma. Yeah.
That's cool. And can you explain us a little bit more about the Chinese culture?
Yeah, this is some really amazing culture, and well, one of the first important works written by Chinese painting was Six Canons of Painting by Xie Ho. I think that it is said like that. And well, I'm not going to explain each one extensively because they're very extensive. I'm just gonna say the six canons that they wrote in this book. The first one is animation through spirit. It's something that they used to explain a lot. They used to talk about spirits in their paintings or in every kind of work that they did. Also, a structural method is used by brush. They used to paint everything in brush and in ink. Fealty of the work in portraying forms. It refers to the object that artists paint looks real or not.
It's like they're how realistic the painting is, right?
Yes, it is like that. And well, the fourth one is conformity to kind applying colors. We already talked about colors and how these represent the background of the history in that time. Also, the proper planning and placing elements is something really important in this culture, and it's one of the canons that they used to apply in every painting that they paint. And the last one is transmission of experience. Chinese culture venerates the past and reverences that they have been worrying about the future. Since the past, they are worrying about the future.
They used to replicate images, right?
Yes. It's something that they used to do a lot in every kind of painting or artistic work that they did. Also, about Hinduism, I don't know if you want to know about that. Karim also talked about that. It's the Dharma and Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Each of them are like the six canons, and well, it's something similar to that.
Like the order of things.
Yes.
One with the other one was like the order in painting, and the other one the order in our lives.
It's really interesting and extensive.
Yeah, and we have the other side of the world. We have the Greeks and the Romans. Can you explain us a little bit about this civilization?
The Mediterranean civilization?
Yeah.
Well, there are two, the Greek and the Roman culture. But I want to focus in the Greek culture, specifically in the architecture. We could say that the sculpture are a kind of architecture, and it is divided in three periods. The style, the first one is called archaic, the second one is early classical, and the third one is the classical style. Most of them want to show an idea of beauty instead of a more realistic approach. The first one, the archaic, is represented by human statues in a rigid posture, like robots, with the arms very close to the body. Also, they have the long and curly hair, and they have a few details in their clothes. The second one is the early classical style. It's also called severe or transitional. The way to represent the body has changed now. For an example of it is the Critias boy. It's a sculpture of the body and it's not stylized, and the expression in the face have changed to neutral. And the right leg is support the weight of the body. And the third one, the classical style, it is the most important in the Greek art because they have still influence in our civilization. This sculpture represents the philosophy and weirdness of the words. Now, on the other side, we have the columns. It's divided by three: the Doric, the Ionic, and the Corinthian. The Doric it was used in Sicily. The column was fluid, and the superior part, that is also called capital, was round. And the most famous building constructed by this was the Parthenon. The second one is the Ionic. It is originated in Asia Minor. It was used by ornamental motifs, making a direct relation with the goddesses. And the capital, the superior part, was represented with a volute. The volute is a spiral. This kind of column it was used in the U.S. Capitol or the Supreme Court buildings. Now the Corinthian. It appears for the first time in the 5th century. Its capital is divided into the inferior one had a rod of a canton leaf, and the superior part had a curvus abacus. The abacus is the flat part of the capital, but in this kind of column is like an arc. And that's all.
Our friend Ivan likes to talk. So, this is the end of the program, guys. Next part, we're gonna start talking about the Renaissance and the other movements of art that appeared in the Middle Ages. So, thank you for your attention. We're gonna make a little break, and we're gonna start the next program in a few minutes. We're back on air. Welcome, guys, to the second part of this program. We're gonna start now talking about the Olmec culture here in America, and then we're gonna go to Europe once again with the Gothic all the way to the Baroque movement. So to start with, we're gonna start with our new partner here. We have Evie, and she's gonna talk us about the Olmec culture.
The Olmec culture, or more common known as Classic period in America, it started around 200 after Christ and it finished around 1000 after Christ. This period has a lot of ceremonial culture because we have 8 gods. We have the Olmec jaguar god, the fish monster, the feathered serpent that is known in the pyramids, also the maize god, painted eye god, Kauai, the water god, and also the word jaguar. We have a lot of new social, economic, and also educational values because they start to do math, to do the language, to do a calendar, and also a lot of ceramic pots, ceramic weapons, guns not. Also have these caballos and also many art forms of ceramic.
Yeah, and all of this happened in Mexico, right? Or
Yeah.
around Mexico. That's so cool. And we're gonna go all the way to Europe once again, talking about the Gothic first. So can you explain us a little bit, Fabi? about the
First,
Gothic?
well, the Gothic is a really important period in Europe because it had a little specific characteristics. For example, the Gothic buildings is characterized by the revivals, the piers, the violent buttress, the pointer arcs, and also the stained glass windows. As you know, the stained glass windows are really popular in these days.
And Notre Dame is a Gothic cathedral, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like the unfortunately been in Notre Dame, yeah, the stained glass.
Yes.
I believe they remain intact. So
Yes,
yeah.
they were really beautiful.
Also the arcs.
Exactly. But also in the Gothic period, it's happened the early Christian art, and this one is based on the Jesus Christ. And its characteristic is that it doesn't have any interest in the human body. Of course, it shows the greatness of Jesus Christ and also serves a model of Christianity.
Okay, and then after this happened in Gothic, then we have the Renaissance period that changed all of the point of view that we have in art. So can you explain us a little bit more about this topic?
Well, yes, about the Renaissance period. This period was mainly characterized by the anthropocentrism, which means that the human started to care more about themselves and collocated them as the highest natural art of God, we can say that. And then we have the main idea of the beauty is a concept that has a proper balance and symmetry in which is really important for the people and the artists of the Renaissance period. Also we have the naturalism. The naturalism is the technique that arises in order to create the world and world that translates the perception of reality into art.
Yeah, and I remember there was another characteristic that was called perspective, right?
Yeah. The perspective also, which is the artwork in the Renaissance that started to add some perspective, as it says the name, in three-dimensional look that made a viewer looking through a window.
It's like that, right? Like that.
Yes, like the painting has a third dimension, which you can see
The background.
the people in the background and also the structures that are in the
Far away.
far away. Yeah.
Near
And also I heard there was a new techniques in that period.
Oh yeah. Also the other techniques we have is the lampera that was very popular, and the esfumato technique, which used Da Vinci.
That was used in the Mona Lisa, right? The Sumano?
Yeah. Now you say it. Yes, it was used in the Mona Lisa.
Okay. And this part of the Renaissance mainly happened in Italy, but then we have another movement in Spain that started with the Baroque period. So can you explain us a little bit about this topic, Claire?
Well, the new castles of the New Spain, it's about the categories of people because the social control was very important in that time. Like the peninsular people that were born in Spain, another were the criolla, a person of Spanish descent born in the New World. Also, Indio, it was a person from America, and Negro was a person black of African descent.
Okay. And yeah, mainly in Spain, as I remember, they had a lot of social division since Spain moved to New Spain here in America and started, having the social classes that basically they tried to establish how important was a person depending on their race, depending on the color and the descendants that they used to have. And then we have in New Spain and other parts of Europe the Baroque period. So can you explain us a little bit more about this?
The Baroque was more in Europe because of the Baroque appears like a contra movement of the Renaissance because all these characteristics are the opposite of the Renaissance. For example, in the Baroque period in the art, the symmetry doesn't matter. The person that are portrayed they aren't like too much realistic. The art is saturated, is exaggerated, and there is no balance. We also have that normally in paintings, the people is portrayed like it's in movement. They also invite the viewer to participate in the art, and we also have that like a technique used in the Renaissance that was the vanishing point, that they were a point where all the lines in the painting connected, and this disappears in the Baroque. And we have paints like Las Menonitas, where, for example, this applies because there is not like a true vanishing point, because there are several elements in that art.
There was a really popular artist in that period that is Walter Bernini's, right?
Who?
Bernini's.
Yes, well, he was more focused on sculptures, and like I mentioned it, in the sculptures, the peoples were portrayed like if they were moving, they were realistic in that aspect. We have that Bernini's sculptures were vivid, were intense, and like I mentioned it, they show movement, and they were also like treated topics really intense. For example, there is one of the Hades where it's like dragging the Persephone, like it's the wife, if I don't remember, to help.
That's cool. So thank you guys for all coming and explaining this point of view in the art of the Middle Ages. Next program, we're gonna talk the third part about modern art. If you stay with us, stay streaming with us, you're gonna learn a lot about this topic. So see you in a couple of minutes. Bye. And we're live again. Welcome to our streaming. This is the third part of the history of art in Radio Tech. To begin with, we have Arturo, which is going to explain us about neoclassicism.
Okay, yes, of course, I can tell you some things about this period. First of all, it tried to return the classic era, changing the exaggerated style of Baroque era to the limited artistic manifestation of this era. First, we have the neoclassicism emerged as before Enlightenment. Then, God was a substitution by the reason. Reasoning, intellectual capacity, and displaying were more important than the human behavior and the God beliefs. Artists started to study in academies, and neoclassicism had a big influence in one of the main countries, which was USA.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about painters that were famous back then?
Of course. First of all, we have Gino Cervi, William Adolph, Louise Elizabeth Biel, Albert Henry, Jean August, and Anselm Feuerbach.
Okay, that's so cool. And after neoclassicism, then we jumped to romanticism. Can you explain us a little bit about this topic?
First of all, the Romanticists react against the neoclassics. When I say Romanticism, what did you think about?
Well, mainly about romantic stuff, love.
That's true, but the reality is that it's all about feelings and passion, not just a love. It can be negative or positive feelings. During the Romanticism, there is not only sculpture, painting, and architecture, but also a lot of writing, literature, and poetry, and also music with Beethoven, Chopin, Schubert, and all.
Piano, violin, those instruments. So,
yeah. Also, it manifested against the rules of art. You know, like in the theater, there was like a specific way of doing it. That it was just one time, just one place, and just one moment. Then they didn't use mecenas, they were the owners of their own work. The mecenas were people that paid them, that helped them make their work. And then the Gothic literature emerged, like, for example, with Mary Shelley and Frankenstein. It's one of the most famous Gothic literature. Also, during painter, they used incomplete lines. It was like a little bit blurry, just to make the the people to feel something, to have a meaning and to make it subjective. And the sublime was everything. And the landscaping or the nationalism, historical moments were important topics that they did in their work. Also, they said the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it wasn't that important what they paint, but what the beholder felt with the painter's filter or whatever they did, the music. So when talking about the important people and the important works that happened during this movement, we have, as I said before, Frankenstein with Mary Shelley, El Zarco by Ignacio Manuel Altamirano, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, The Portrait of Kleptomatic by Theodore Géricault, The Portrait of Gaspard Frederick, Wander Above the Sea of Fog by Gaspar David, The Tiger by William Blake, and finally Newton, also by William Blake. These are some of the most famous, but there are so many more.
We know that this movement mainly happened in the area of France area. So after this romantic scene, we saw another contrast in movement, and this was realism. Realism was pretty much the other side of the coin from romanticism, because realism tried to express feelings as real as they could be, not only in literature but also in art and paintings. In paintings we can see the contrast. There's a painting that shows the conditions that the peasants were living in, and the background was pretty real because they also showed the castles and the contrast between the high society and the low society. Then we have a branch of the realism that it was naturalism. It is like an exaggeration of realism. This means that they were mostly focused in lower classes. Was pretty not optimistic scenes, and they have really type of activities plus violence because they used to make a lot of stereotypes that made the lower class a little bit fearful. So realism and naturalism, they were like the contrast of romanticism. And then we have another movement. Can you explain, Susana, a little bit about this as well?
About the next movement
Yeah.
is the avant-garde. Personally, it's one of my favorites because inside the avant-garde there are so many more, like the Faubins, Cubism, Futurism, Expressionism, Dadaism, Surrealism, Abstract Art, and Constructivism. Also, in general, in the avant-garde, there wasn't a depiction of reality. It was the era, the time, the age of subjectivity. The artist didn't use any rule, any formula. It was really free. It was amazing. It has a lot of emotion, color, and they tried to do a recreation of art. For example, in the Fauvism, we can see a lot of work, especially in the colors. They are very vibrant and strong. It was influenced by the Impressionism. The colors of the objects didn't match the reality, as I said before, and it didn't have profundity or dimension. Or another example is the Surrealism, that it's a surrealism that one of the most famous painters was Salvador Dalí. It's a work of art that it's depicted like a dream from the subconscious. There is no rationality, and when we're talking about the literature in the surrealism, there's the automatic writing. There's a really famous work from André Breton, La vida es sueño, that it's a perfect example of automatic writing, that it's just writing what you are thinking. And also the Surrealist Manifesto.
Okay. And to end this topic or this program, this experiment, we're gonna go with Gloria. She's gonna explain us about pop art. So can you explain?
Yes. The characteristics of pop art are recognizable imagery that are images and icons from popular media and products. Also bright colors, and some of them are the primary like red, yellow, and blue. Irony, its humor was one of the main components of pop art. It's one of the most important. Also, innovative techniques. It was engaged in printmaking process, and it's mixed with media and college. Many pop artists often blend material and use a variety of different types of media. These are some of the characteristics of pop art.
That's so cool. Thank you for joining us in this experiment in Radio Tech. So if you want to check our next program, and next we're gonna do another one about history in general. So stay tuned with it, and we're gonna see you later, guys.